What are the downsides of weed that people don't talk about? Derealization disorder. If you know, then you know. I hesitate to send you over to r/leaves, but it was a really important subreddit for me to learn from. Be kind to the folks over there. Both my roommates are heavy smokers, and they just think so slowly. It takes them forever to understand anything. They also forget a lot of stuff, like they'll step away from the dishes for a moment and then never finish them without prompting. The house smells like a coffin. I eat the occasional edible, but seeing how lethargic they are has convinced me to quit smoking pot entirely. Not having an appetite if you're not high. You have to smoke heavily though to get to that point. Been smoking every day for the past decade and am recently realizing that being too introspective can be a negative thing at times. I've been thinking too much and acting too little. It can become your only personality trait. Demotivation in heavy consumers. It is fine in moderation, but multiple times per day seems to suck the ambition from most people I've seen, including myself long ago. I've noticed after the initial uptick in chatter people tend to get really quiet, and zoned out in their own thoughts. When I used to smoke it, I found it had a dulling effect on my personality and conversational skills after the fact, too. One thing that I never see brought up is the effect of marijuana on dreaming. Marijuana use can prevent the user from dreaming during regular sleep. When the user stops using marijuana for a while, they can experience night after night of extremely vivid dreams. I can only speak for my own experience, but I have heard this echoed by a co-worker's dad who started smoking again because he couldn't handle having acid trip dreams every night. I suspect that marijuana has some potent effect on REM sleep that will remain underdocumented until it is descheduled and more thorough research can be done. Edit. Wow. I was not expecting this to get such a reaction. Thanks for the silver/elves. Weed is for people that have found their way in life, it's not for people who are looking for the way. My uncle. In other words, as fun as it may seem when you're young. Get your shit together first: education, family, career, etc. Edit. Thanks for the gilding, kind strangers, and for those of you who have taken offense. Relax, I'm glad it all worked out for you. All my sympathies if it didn't. Regardless, weed can for most people take your motivation and drive away if it's taken up and consumed in high volumes at an early age. It's just think it isn't a good idea. I think if you're ripping bongs every day from 16 up through high school, it's really bad for developing brains, i.e. anyone under 25. I would say that as a long-term smoker that wants out, it has made me incredibly boring. If I have evening plans on the weekend but smoke anything in the day, then I'm far more prone to cancelling those nighttime plans. If I do attend those plans after smoking in the day, then I feel I'm not entirely there. Awkward silences, jokes don't land, keeping a conversation going becomes 10x harder, and I'm inevitably just waiting for an appropriate time to leave. Overall, it just kinda makes you socially awkward and super boring to be around in a social setting. Just from my experience. Cannabinoid hyperemesis and cyclic vomiting syndrome. As a pretty consistent weed smoker, I don't like when people say that weed isn't addicting. They're right in saying that it's not addictive chemically like nicotine or something. You can still get addicted to not being sober. It makes you okay with being just okay. Frequent heavy use can affect your motivation and mood, even during periods of not being high. It is habit forming. Not technically addictive, but for some it can be habit forming in maladaptive ways. Bad for your lungs if you inhale combusted flower. Inhaling any type of smoke at all isn't good for your lungs. And that shit's expensive. It can trigger psychosis if you're susceptible to it already. Like anything else in the world, it can be addictive. Putting anything that's not air in your lungs is bad for you. This thread is giving me more and more motivation to quit in the new year. What I've noticed about excessive use and what's frequently touched upon here is the demotivation. I become a slobbish baked potato for the most part. I let everything go until it's anxiety-inducing and causes a breakdown. And quitting cold turkey, at least in my experience, can cause sleep paralysis, which is terrifying to say the least. One of the biggest downsides I've seen as someone that doesn't smoke but who had many friends that do, is it becomes an obsession or crutch. What I mean by this: most of my friends can't get through the day without smoking pot. They constantly need it for stress or irritation. And by doing this it becomes an obsession. For many, including people I've dated, is all they care about doing. Going to their besties' house and smoking pot. That's literally it. I'm not saying this end up being everyone, but it is many. Many people just smoke instead of dealing with their problems. On r/trees I'll see people post "GF just broke up with me, getting high AF." I treat it like I would alcohol only on the weekends and occasionally during the weekdays. And just to have fun and not escape my current life situation. Marijuana definitely needs to be studied more. Up until recently, there haven't been very many scientific studies on the effects of marijuana due to legal issues in the US. That said, there is moderate evidence that acute marijuana use can impair learning, memory, and attention, leading to a reasonable argument that it shouldn't be consumed by those under about 25 since the brain is still developing during that time. Cannabis-induced dissociation can completely ruin your life. If you smoke it way too often, your shorter-term memory gets fucked. Seriously, there was a period in my life when I smoked for 2 months straight. Almost a gram a day. My memory was non-existent then. I work in consulting, so I realized it was fucking with my job, so I had to quit. Weed is good, just don't overdo it. If you use it regularly it can become super expensive. The majority of people I know who smoke weed regularly make it an integral part of their whole personality. It wears a bit thin at times. Also, the stuff stinks. Smoke weed if you want, but make it just another thing you do, not the only thing you do. Mind-blowing anxiety and paranoia, every time. Not for me, thanks. Just to clarify my position, I fully uphold anyone's right to do what they feel helps with their own body and am not against weed. If it helps you, I am happy for you. Wish it was the same for me. Happy New Year. Pretty late, but depersonalization/derealization after a high, that can last months after you smoke. If you don't know what DP/doctor is, it's a horrendous form of anxiety that strikes unsuspecting victims, that a lot of people get after smoking weed that can take a while to go away. For me, I smoked it for 2 years every day. I don't remember much about those 2 years, even though they should have been the most memorable years of my life. It can completely tank your blood pressure or throw you into an irregular heartbeat if you majorly overdo it, usually with edibles. I'm a paramedic and the only time I have weed-related calls are because of edibles. They can really fuck you up. Laziness. I know a lot of people say it makes you more motivated, but based on the stoners that I personally know, that definitely is not the case. I started smoking pot in high school. I'd go to school and then go hang out with my friends and get high. Not every day, but some. I had chess club 1 day a week and I was a better chess player if I had not smoked pot the previous day. It was so obvious at the time because at that age the only changing variable was what I did between the end of school and sleep. So it limits my capacity to think critically. Not sure if that's just because I was young, or what. This is just for me personally, but it isn't conducive to me staying off hard drugs. I'm a recovering coke and heroin addict. In the past I tried to just smoke weed and stay off the hard shit, but I always just end up smoking weed like I shot dope, that is fucking constantly, or I smoke once and get too wigged out, and I'm just like fuck it, seal's broken, let's go get what I really want. Either way, it's always led me back to the shit that's been putting my life in shambles for the last 5 years. I feel like ever since I started using harder drugs, weed just doesn't have the same effect on me it used to when I was younger. Like I get nauseas from smelling it sometimes now, and when I do smoke it feels almost like having a bad trip.